All right, friends, I'm back. It's T-Man, and we're going to do a reaction video to our good friend Menno Henselmans. Yes, Henselmans. God, man, what a long name. Anyway, so we're going to react to this fitness slave, Mr. Helmsman, science, fitness, whatever you want to call him, slave. So Menno Helmsmans says training fasted improves lean gains. Surprising new study. Training fasted. What do you mean by lean gains? You mean you just lost body fat? You lost body fat. You didn't build any muscle.
This was not supposed to happen. Fasted training is not supposed to make anything better. So I was very surprised, a little bit
It doesn't.
upset even, with the results of our latest study. See, when I spend some of my personal money on a study, I just wanted to tell me I'm right, so that I can post about it and tell people, I told you so. I don't like surprises, but here we go. So for background, most of the research on fasted training has been quite limited. There's surprisingly limited long-term good quality.
No, there's studies out there on it. It's not that limited as he thinks it is. Fasted training, okay? They've done many studies on fasted training to find out what the outcome would be if they did particular things fasted. They already know what it's gonna. The truth is they already know what it's gonna be, but of course they have to go through the whole study thing. You know, get a group of people, you know, organize it, and then and make a report. So therefore they actually have something. It's not been faked.
The research on the effects of training fasted versus fed, especially in energy surplus, because almost all the studies on intermittent fasting are done on people in energy restriction when they are cutting. So we know that fasted training.
Yeah, cutting. Think about it. Why would you starve? Why would you go and train starved? That makes absolutely no sense. Let me go train starved. Okay. What are you training for exactly? I'll explain this. If you're going to the gym and you're damaging muscle fibers and you're fasted, you definitely do not want to be starving and going there and damaging muscle fibers to build muscle. So I don't know what lean gains these people are talking about. You got lean gains. You didn't get any lean gains. Okay, sorry about that. I got bumped there. So like I said, you're not really getting any lean gains there. I don't know what these people are talking about, this whole lean gains thing. Whatever, man. Yeah, losing body fat. You better not be damaging muscles and be starved, because you're going to get a big apoptosis there.
Studies on intermittent fasting are done on people in energy restriction when they are cutting. So we know that fasted training is supposed to increase muscle protein breakdown, and it can be limiting for...
There you go. It's supposed to increase muscle protein breakdown. Is that what you want? Is that associated with muscle protein buildup? No. And he says cutting. What are you cutting there exactly? You're trying to lose body fat. Can limit anabolism. Yes, it can limit anabolism for sure.
Anabolism. However, we also know that there is a compensatory effect when you are fasted for a period of time, that anabolic signaling afterwards goes up. So it's unclear if the...
Okay, we know why it goes up. It's because you're starving. So it goes up to preserve you. It's another adaptory process. The body does that to protect you, just like diabetes or people eating sugar. Insulin's through the roof. Wax. Got to remove all the sugar from the arteries. A whole bunch of factors. Your body adapts in different ways. If you starve yourself, how does it adapt? It increases hormones to do what? To preserve energy in your body. That's what. Turnover and a bunch of stuff.
Acute missing out on a meal and not having protein synthesis during the workout, and probably also having higher rates of muscle protein breakdown, if the body can compensate for that over time by having more anabolism after the workout and kind of catch up with the lost muscle growth. We also know that fasted training can impair performance, but again, most research is acute. It just looks at people doing a single workout, and it does not track what happens over the long term. So we did a study to find out what the effect is of fasted versus fed training in the long term. Well, long term in exercise science view is 8 weeks.
Fasted versus fed. What do you think it's going to be? It's kind of obvious.
But we got some interesting results. despite being screwed over by the pandemic lockdowns. So what we did is we had a
Here's the thing: if you fast yourself and you consume a lot of complex carbohydrates, guess where they're going to load? Well, some of it might turn to fat, and a good majority of it will turn to glycogen. It'll increase the sarcoplasm. It'll expand it. That's what it'll do. That's why a lot of people that go to the gym, they increase the sarcoplasm. They think it's muscle growth. It's not muscle growth. Muscles, they don't grow like that.
group of strength-trained individuals, quite serious lifters, men and women, perform an 8-week strength training program, 4 days a week, full body workouts, quite high volume, and one group had 4 meals per day, spread across the day, so 4 square meals. They trained fed, whereas the fasted training group had an 8-hour eating window, as opposed to about 13 hours as it turned up for the fed group, and they started eating at least 1 hour after their workout. So they trained fasted, and they had a shorter total eating window compared to the group with 4 square meals a day, that trained fed and had their meals spread across the day. Protein intake was approximately 1 gram per pound, or 2.2 gram per kilogram in both groups, so should be more than enough to fuel good gains. And energy.
Fuel good gains? What gains? Fuel what gains? You're not, man, if you have damaged muscles and you're damaging them eccentrically in the gym, I don't know about fueling good gains. You need a lot of protein, man, to build those muscles. A lot.
The intake was set at a 10% energy surplus, and we found no significant differences between the groups in at least their reported and logged energy intakes, while being under supervision by dietitians. However, more on this later.
Okay.
And these were our main findings. Strength gains were worse, at least for 1 RM strength on the squat, in the fasted training group. However, there were no significant differences between the groups in terms of leg extension strength, bench press strength, or leg press strength. So overall, strength gains, you could say, were worse for the fasted training group, but differences were not that massive. Interestingly, counter to my expectations, fat-free mass gains were similar between the groups. We measured fat-free mass using a free compartment model, which is quite good. It combines the BOD with BIES, which is supposed to give a pretty good estimate of total body composition. We also wanted to do ultrasound measures, but our laboratory got shut down during the pandemic when we wanted to do that after a study. So we lost a cohort and some of the data, but we still got decent results. And like I said, a free compartment model is supposed to be quite good. So I don't expect that this was the major limiting factor for the study. Now here's where things get very surprising. The fasted training group had equal muscle growth as measured by fat-free mass as the fed training group. However, they had less fat gain. So in terms of body composition results, they actually got better results. However, strength gains were worse. So what I think happened is that the fasted training group consumed fewer calories despite reporting the same number of calories. This is called social desirability bias. When you tell people that they're supposed to be bulking, they're supposed to be in energy surplus, they actually report that they are, but they don't do it. Because, of course, it's much easier to just say that you're doing something and not do it than to actually do it. And this is very common in research, especially when you're doing an intervention like fasting or a ketogenic diet, and you have people try to bulk. It's harder for them to increase their energy intake when they are restricting their food choices or the time that they can eat. So often they end up underreporting. And I think that's what happened here. And that this didn't influence strength gains or muscle growth, seemingly, is because the effect of energy intake in general is probably quite overrated. Most prior studies that have looked at the effect of energy intake on muscle growth have found surprisingly small effects, especially as a natural trainee. When you increase energy intake above a relatively small energy surplus, most of that surplus just goes to fat gain. There's only so much muscle you can build, and it seems that that happened in the fat group in our study. So on the one hand, you can argue that the fast training group got better results, but I think that the effect is just, there was some confounding.
They could make gains. Oh, man, you can constantly make gains. It's just ridiculous, whatever, man. Proteins are being broken down and built up all the time, so you're always making gains, really. The truth is this. I don't know how little gains you're making or how much you're making. Nobody can say exactly, because listen, here's the thing, but it's usually very minute. For those people that are adapted, whatever the fuck they're doing in the gym, bro, wasting their time, these gym bros, okay? Bro, proteins build up and break down all day long. You walk around the street, whatever. You know what I mean? So you go to the gym, it's building up, it's breaking down, it's building up. So what? There's no damage, there's no growth there, okay? And if it's just minute damage, well, your body is just going to repair. It's not going to remodel anything. It's just waste of time.
With energy intake, probably, and it does underscore that the fasted training group didn't get worse gains despite being on a lower energy intake.
Again, what gains did they build starving? You have to be in a positive nitrogen balance. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown to see that mass on that myofibrillar. You understand me? And so, yeah, but will that work adapted? No. Yeah, that only works in an adaptation. So if you're going to the gym, it's blunting. The effect is blunting because you're adapted to your exercises. You're just doing them over and over and over and over forever and ever and ever. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 15 years have passed, 20 years have passed. They're doing the same exercise, the same routine, the same everything. They haven't changed anything, man. People waste their time so much. It's ridiculous, bro. Get it? Christ. Just fucking do something new. Why do you think science tells you a unique feature of untrained muscles or, man, unaccustomed exercise is known to cause what? Widespread muscle damage. Okay, so unfamiliar forms and unaccustomed exercise or an untrained muscle is what? Is known to cause what? Widespread muscle damage. Okay, dude? So you should do as many unaccustomed things as you can to get as many of these fucking adaptations as you can. So will we run out? Here's the question. Will we run out of making adaptations lifting in a gym? No. Providing you do what? I don't know. Here's the thing. If eccentric exercise is the key to getting damage and growth, because they tell you in science, they tell you unfamiliar, unaccustomed, untrained muscles and eccentric exercise will get you this damage. But here's the thing. Unaccustomed exercise is that when you're doing something that you're unaccustomed to, are you going to just do the eccentric when you do that the first time? No. Well, the majority, 99% of the people are not fucking doing eccentric there. They're doing full range of motion. Get it? You understand me? That first bout. Now, after that, after you become accustomed to it, or it becomes accustomed to whatever the fuck you're doing there eccentrically, but the concentric adapts in a different way, and the eccentric adapts in a different way. Okay? Protecting from any more muscles to get damage to build muscle. Okay? And so you can do overload, eccentric overload. That will get you damage all the time. You understand? That will get you damage all the time. But you're stuck there all the time doing the same exercises. So it's good to do things that you're unfamiliar, unaccustomed with other stuff and not just staying with, because I see people all the time. They never do dips. They never do pull-ups. They'll either like do some dumbbell shit or they'll like stick to the same machines or fucking cable machines. You understand me? They never do other stuff. They don't step out of their comfort zone because they're comfortable. They don't like to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable to get things. You understand me?
Probably, but overall I would not interpret this as being a better result for the fasted training group. If you look at prior research, it's very clear that fasted training does not improve fat loss. This is a very common myth and misconception because when
I like how he says improve fat loss. You mean help lose fat? Ah, man, there's different ways to lose fat. You know that? There's different ways to lose fat.
you train fasted, yes, you burn more fat during the workout, but acute fat oxidation does not necessarily translate into better long-term adipose tissue loss. So acute fat burning is not the same as losing body fat long-term. The difference is that long-term fat loss is dictated by energy balance, because even if you burn more fat during your workout, that means you burn fewer carbs. If you burn more carbs, that means you have to resynthesize glycogen, which also costs energy. And in the end, it all comes back to long-term energy balance over time, because the body adheres to physical laws, specifically thermodynamics. In the end, energy balance has to balance out.
Yes, I know this. I posted a study about it in my community section. It's there right now.
If your total bodily energy balance is negative, the body has to get rid of some energy, and it can burn either fat or muscle, but it has to get rid of some energy. And as I said, multiple prior studies have found that fasted training does not improve fat loss, because it doesn't improve energy expenditure, which brings us to probably the most...
I guess then Jason Blah is wasting his time, because that's what he does. He says he does that.
important finding of the study, in my view, total energy expenditure was probably actually lower during the fasted workouts because total training volume, total repetition volume, was lower during the fasted workouts.
Yeah, because they feel exhausted, tired, and they're burnt out. It's kind of obvious.
And we also found that the gap between the groups, so the fat training group had a higher total repetition volume of the same workouts.
Yeah.
They basically had better strength endurance, more stamina. And that gap widened between the groups. So
More strength, what? What? The performance gap between the two groups widen over more strength, what? Fasted?
over time, the gap between the fat group and the fasted group got bigger, and the fat group started outperforming the fasted more in terms of how many repetitions they could do during their workouts.
Well, the Fed group outperformed them training wise, of course. The whole goal fasted was to get what? You said lean gains. What you mean by lean gains? Losing body fat, right? It's obviously you're losing there's a loss of energy there. Here's the thing though. If you lift eccentrically, like if you move eccentrically your exercises, right? For high repetition work, but not heavy to cause any damage there, but doing a lot of repetition work eccentrically, you understand me? That's going to help you because there's less energy being lost in the eccentric as you would do full concentric lifts. If you're using, I don't know, if you're doing that in the gym, I don't know. He says these exercises, I don't know what the fuck they're doing there in the gym. So they're exercising with weights to lose body fat, whatever, fasted. That's like the Blaha thing. That's just crazy insane. Look, man, I just go to a buffet and I eat shitloads of meat and then I become dry and I lose a lot of fat. Now, any additional stuff I want to take off later, if there's somewhere I could take off there, then I'm probably going to do sprints. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do these sprints back and forth. I'm going to allow my metabolism to increase and start burning fat. And so I'm going to continue. I'm going to eat seafood, and I'm going to have some beef, but I'm not going to eat like a lot of it, you know what I mean? Just enough.
Now we know that repetition volume is a key driver of muscle growth. It's the primary reason why in some research higher
Volume is the key driver of muscle growth? No, it's not. It's not the key driver of muscle, not that I know of. But okay, whatever you say, I don't care.
training frequencies and longer rest intervals improve muscle growth. Also why training closer to failure can improve muscle.
Like, what do you mean it improves? Like, how much does it improve there? You open the window for protein breakdown, so then you put it back, and then it expands like a little bit, and then it goes back again every time you go back to the gym and lift. Is that it? Man, none of this makes sense, but whatever. Some research indicates hypering and atrophying. Training frequencies and longer rest period intervals improve muscle growth. It does? How does it do that exactly? He doesn't even elaborate. Explain. Training closer to failure can improve muscle growth. How does train to a failure, you mean like a rep, right? Train to failure like on your reps, not sets, you mean reps. How does that improve muscle growth? How does that cause the muscle to grow if you failed at lifting?
Muscle growth, you do more repetitions, which increases the total accumulated time under tension, which is the primary driver of muscle growth.
No,
so basically, you do more.
That's not the primary driver of muscle growth. Is muscle damage while it's under mechanical tension. Yeah, in the eccentric. The primary driver of muscle growth is eccentric exercise. Because what's a unique feature of eccentric exercise? Untrained subjects become what? Stiff and sore the next day due to what? Damage. Okay, but here's the thing. Regardless whether these untrained people, they got damaged from the eccentric, they were lifting full concentric. They were lifting full range of fucking motion, get it? But the eccentric, because you're lowering the weight, it caused the fucking damage in these untrained people. But guess what? Eccentric exercise, any eccentric exercise, if done vigorously, is known to cause what? Damage, okay? So if you overload the eccentric, it's known to cause damage. And if you do vigorous workouts eccentrically, it's known to cause damage, thus hypertrophy, okay? So I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Better performance, more muscle growth. So it's likely that this gap in
It's not based on performance. Your performance tanks in eccentric exercise. How could you be performing? Everybody knows in bodybuilding it's associated with fucking sportive performance, eccentric exercise. Your sportive performance goes out the window.
performance, the lower training volume of the fasted training group would start interfering with their long-term gains. In our study, 8-week study, small
Oh man, that's going to interfere with their long-term gains fasted. How? This is so dumb. I'm going to fast and try to see if I could build muscles. I'm going to skate uphill. I'm going to lift concentrically and see if I can squeeze out a muscle gain. Man, this is just like the whole fitness industry is so stupid.
study, we didn't find this to be statistically significant, but over a long term and based on the total research as a whole, the research is clearly negative in terms of strength gains and size gains for fasted workouts versus
Strength gain. You want to ask my fucking opinion, man, my experience? You lift concentrically, it shortens your sarcomeres, okay? You're preventing your muscles from growing. They never grow. Why? Because they're adapted. They grow when they get damaged eccentrically. So they're adapted. How do muscles adapt to the concentric? Easy. It prevents muscles from getting damaged. That's what concentric lifting does. But because you're lifting heavier and heavier and heavier, you're trying to at least overload the concentric, it will align in parallel and it'll give you some more force production, okay? But guess what? Eccentric is always known to cause damage and it can take you out. It can injure you or damage you or whatever. It grows muscle there, okay? It's really fucking simple. It isn't rocket science.
fat workouts. So I think in our study also that it would likely happen if we were to continue the study longer, even though it seems that the acute effect, the short-term effect at least, of fasted training is not that large for muscle growth. It's also worth pointing.
Yeah, because most people start consuming a lot of glycogen. It's like this. They had done a study on chickens. So they starve these chickens and then they overfeed them and then they blow up and then they sell them in the market. Okay, that's what they do. So they let them roam around starved for a little while and then they overfeed them like crazy. They call that the rebound effect. Apparently, it can work in muscle building. So you starve yourself like crazy for maybe 1, 2, 3 days, right? Then, I don't know, you go into the gym and you start lifting, right? But I'm not saying going fasted to the gym. You eat now. You go to the gym, you start eating, you lift, and all of a sudden your muscles rebound. They rebound bigger. So there are different ways and modalities and tricks that you could use to try to get your muscles to grow. You understand me? They can rebound by growing. There's different ways. Did he mention that? No, he never said that. Rebound effect.
Pointing out that the fasted training group also reported lower daily energy levels, which is quite significant for like daily life considerations, but mood and sleep quality were not affected. So if you combine lower training,
Mood and sleep quality, well, not necessarily. Your body, eventually you get used to not eating. Look, I went the whole day. I tried, well, pretty much the whole day today. I couldn't eat. But I had some kind of stomach problems recently, whatever. And so I just simply said, fuck it, I'm not going to eat anything. And when I woke up in the morning, I did feel kind of a hunger pain. But then the hunger pain kind of went away. And I didn't feel like I needed to eat the whole fucking day. You know what I mean? Which is unusual. Maybe because I carry a lot of muscle, I carry a lot of weight. So it's not necessarily necessary to eat all the time. And plus, I'm not eating other foods that interfere. I'm just eating natural animal products. So, yeah, I don't know.
volume and lower energy levels, I think that long term that would lead to less muscle growth in the fasted training group.
No, really? You think that there would be less muscle growth in the fasted group? No, yeah. There's less muscle growth in the starved group, the group that went on the starvation diet. Oh, okay, yeah. That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
But the effects are less than I would have expected. And overall in the literature, there is a negative trend, but the effects are not major. So I can imagine that some people, if they just really prefer...
Yeah, no. You think there would be a negative effect there? No, really? You don't say. You think it'd probably would be positive, right? When you starve yourself. Yeah, okay.
Or to train fasted, or if that helps them create an energy deficit and fat loss is your primary aim, then for some reason it might be worth it to train fasted, even though performance will suffer and you are...
I love this. Performance will suffer. Well, bodybuilding's not based on performance because it compromises sportive performance. Get it, man?
Are probably long-term going to have slightly worse gains.
Does he even know what bodybuilding is? Bodybuilding is about building your body big and strong. That's what it is. Now, if you want to show off powerlifting, then go powerlift and show off to people. But you're not going to build your body lifting powerlifting, okay? You're not going to get big and strong. You're going to stay small and weak, but you will appear to look like you're strong, lifting concentrically. You give the illusion, the appearance. But you are not physically stronger. In other words, you don't have enough power to punch through a punching bag. See what I mean? Or try to win against somebody in an arm wrestling match because you didn't get physically stronger. You're a weak ass little motherfucker. Get it? Lifting a heavy weight off the floor. Yeah. Now, they can probably point their finger at me and say, well, you're weak because you don't lift concentrically a heavy weight off the floor. But you're stronger physically than us. But we're stronger than you because we can lift something heavy off the floor. Which one would you want to be? Here's the question. Which one would you want to be? The guy that could lift very, very heavy off the floor but is small and weak physically? Or the guy in this material world, this physical world, being physically bigger and stronger that you can punch through punching bags and fucking demolish things and, you know, you're just super fucking strong, man. You have so many muscle fibers and everything. Which guy would you like to be? The big, strong guy or the small, skinny, weak guy that can lift a heavy weight off the floor? See what I'm trying to explain to you? That can't punch through a punching bag or win at an arm wrestling match. You get it? Women are not impressed by small, skinny, weak guys lift a heavy weight off the floor.
So I hope this information helps you set up your diet. If you're interested in more of this kind of evidence-based information, I'd be
Yes, thank you for that. This was really horrendous, this video.
honored if you like and subscribe. And if you're interested in a full research breakdown of
I will. I've liked and I've subscribed. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Tell me what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel.
absolutely everything.
I guess he's selling his programs. I'll see you in the next one. That was interesting. Training fasted improves lean gains. It improves your leanness, but other than that, yeah. Surprising new study. There's a lot of studies on it.